Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
The largest union talk radio program in the South. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. He is out today. He is at the Alabama State Communication Workers Conference. So hope he is having a good time down there. You can leave us a voicemail at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857 at any time. You can also send us a text at that number, and we will respond to it during the show. Or leave a written note at tvlr.fm/contact. Lots of ways to get in touch with us. We're not going to open the phone lines for a little while today because we've got so much to get to. We're going to start by talking to a friend of the show, Whitney Washington, who I believe should be in the Zoom. She's the vice president of the North Alabama Area Labor Council, about the recent the recent address to the Huntsville City Council by the Huntsville Hospital CEO, Jeff Sams. Whitney, welcome back to the program.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Whoa, super. I don't know if that is on us or you, but super, super echoey. But you and I were both at the city council meeting on Thursday where Huntsville Hospital CEO Jeff Sams spoke. And, you know, it was what was the most frustrating thing to me was that, you know, we had actually spoken to the CEO previously, and he had spoken a few times to the news, and the whole thing was, oh well, we can't share a lot of details because we have an NDA. And you know, I don't know if maybe you caught something that I didn't, or if if maybe I missed something, but to me, there did not seem to be anything that he talked about that they were not saying before. Like, you know, it just seems like that that this was all that basically everything that they talked about were things that they were telling the news, that they were talking about in press conferences and all of that. Previously to the NDA, there did not seem to be anything, certainly not major, to try to pacify concerns of the community that would have been kind of prohibited from that they would have been prohibited from discussing under some sort of NDA. I mean, am I missing something there?
Yeah. Is this a little better?
Still, we're still. I don't know if we're working on it or not, but still echoey. And so I'll talk a little bit about that while we try to get it figured out. It's okay. Let's try it again, Whitney. We should be good now.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So Sam, the CEO of Huntsville Hospital, spoke at the city council meeting about the deal with Crestwood that was finalized March 31st. And yeah, I don't think that there was anything like especially revelatory about this. He did give us a little bit more clarification about the timeline, saying he first sort of got word that Crestwood might be available for sale around Thanksgiving last year. The purchase was announced January. And it was a $450 million deal, so nearly $500 million. So that's a pretty quick turnaround for a deal that size. And again, even in that, 6-week, 8-week span between when they knew they were going to buy and it was announced, he could have talked to city council then. He could have come public then before he signed an NDA. I think what was really interesting is that if you take Jeff Sam's word for it, he has absolutely no power to do anything. He can't fight back to Crestwood on an NDA. He can't dictate the cost of services at a hospital. According to him, it's just the federal government and insurance that are deciding healthcare costs. And he also said that the Huntsville Hospital does not control the market for nurses, which after this deal is basically not true. It's not literally that he controls, is like manipulating levers to decide what nurses get paid across the state. But if you own or are responsible for, you know, 15 hospitals in 15 counties, and you effectively have a monopoly, like you do actually control the market
Right.
for nurses and for other staff.
I want to
Um,
mention something about the NDA really quickly because he kept leaning on this. That's why I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't talk about it because of the NDA.
yeah.
You signed the NDA. Yeah, you made that.
Yes.
You had the you were the one that made the decision to sign the NDA, and presumably your lawyers, at your direction, negotiated the terms of the NDA, right?
Yeah,
You know,
because he
as
did
a
mention having lawyers there.
exactly, yeah, and so you've got all the and you're right. I mean, that was a constant theme of what he was talking about. Of the whole presentation is, little Huntsville Hospital just doesn't have any power. We're hemmed in on all sides by all the forces of the market and consumers and insurance and everything like that. But despite the fact that throughout the theme, from the NDA to the concerns about wages to the concerns about prices, the theme was Huntsville Hospital has no power. Despite that, you would think with respect to prices, if Huntsville Hospital has no power to set prices, that, well, then you could just commit to doing what you're apparently going to do anyway, which is committing to not raising the prices of care above and beyond inflation at the very least. If that's what you're going to do anyway, you could commit to that for 3 or 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And in order to try to make the community feel better with respect to wages, he's like, oh, we have to compete with Birmingham and Nashville and all of these sorts of all of these places. And, so we can't afford to let the wages of our nurses fall. Well, if you're not going to, then why not commit to saying at the very minimum, for the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, however long you want to do it, nurses and staff at our hospitals will not see the total value of their wages and compensation fall below where they are now when you account for inflation. There was no commitment on either of those fronts. They just talked about the forces that are hemming in Huntsville Hospital, but there was no strong commitment, right? And
Yeah.
I think that it was frustrating.
It's very frustrating. There were no clear commitments. He sort of absolved himself of any power. And I think it really just highlighted the whole lack of transparency from start to finish on this deal. And sort of the messiness of Huntsville Hospital's jurisdiction. The city council also seemed to wash their hands of this deal in terms of what they were able to say. Again, when he was consulting with his lawyers, I would assume he would have had to get approval from the Huntsville Hospital Authority Board that is appointed by the city council. And so one would think that there would have been conversations back and forth as this deal was being proposed. But somehow simultaneously, he, didn't have to do that, but he's, completely at the will of Crestwood and this NDA. I'm very, I feel, and he seems also confused about how much power he actually has in this situation.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty funny. There was some, there was a little interpersonal conflict on the council. I don't know how, exactly relevant it is to, the material conditions of people, but it was fun kind of seeing council member Watkins really put his feet to the fire and express her dissatisfaction at the lack of transparency, at the lack of District 1 representation on the board, and which, that really goes to show, it's an 11-member volunteer board. And they are now this board is responsible for the administration of a huge healthcare system across basically all of North Alabama and some of southern Tennessee. And so there are so many different communities that are affected by Huntsville Hospital that do not have representation on the board. I think that you could very well make the case to increase the size of the board significantly to ensure that everybody does have some level of representation. But as Watkins was pressuring him and expressing her dissatisfaction, that was offensive to council member and council president Robinson, and she interrupted Watkins and ended the meeting for like 5 minutes and then called everyone back. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I think last week we talked a little bit about the 1971 sanitation workers strike and how Huntsville has just always portrayed itself as a more progressive city in Alabama, that they were quicker to integration, just overall less racist. And I think in general, what we saw on Thursday really shows how untrue that has always been and still is to this day. In general, none of the city council members, except Watkins, at least in my view, actually asked Sams any meaningful questions. Everyone else sort of hit him with some softball questions that he could easily deflect. And, she said that she was embarrassed that she couldn't go to her constituents and say that she knew anything about this deal, that this was, completely done without any say from the city council. And what she also revealed was that she went to Sam's to ask for representation for District 1, which is a predominantly Black working class district in Huntsville. And he said that that they probably couldn't find a good fit because you need a certain skill set to be on the board. Which I think
he did not deny that, actually. By the way, which is I think worth noting. He did not deny using those words with respect to.
He did not. He did not deny using those words. I assume she has proof. And I think you saw so many mechanisms of power and white supremacy sort of, let that get lost in the shuffle. I'm so glad that she did bring that up because I do think, like you mentioned, this representation is a real issue. They cover 15 counties, and Huntsville, the city of Huntsville, is the only sort of like government entity that has any say, even though that's just one city in one of the counties that they cover. And then specifically when it comes to Watkins' comments, immediately Jenny Robinson is standing up saying, you're disrespecting Sam's, which I don't know why that is her responsibility or why that would be her priority. Like, even if Watkins was disrespecting him, so what? He's a CEO. Like, he's fine. And he was honestly handling it like pretty well. Like, he did not seem especially defensive.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Sam's, and I also want to say, the whole segment is basically kind of bashing on Huntsville Hospital, and I don't think without good reason. There are possibilities for, it's not as if there is no potential good outcomes from this deal. And one of the things that I think that he rightly points to is that that Crestwood was owned by an out-of-state corporation. And, I think he kind of mixed up his words, but a significant portion of the profit that Crestwood made, which it was making a lot of profit for the company, it was basically the only profitable hospital in their portfolio, was going out of the state. And now that money will be able to be used within the Huntsville Hospital system and be used, across North Alabama instead of being sent out of state. And that's real. And, somebody tried to attack him later. And when he was in the lobby about how, well, why didn't you spend that $450 million on infrastructure improvements in the Huntsville Hospital system? But using that money to buy Crestwood, it allows Huntsville Hospital on the longer term to take advantage of the profits that Crestwood would be making to make those long-term investments. So I mean, there are lots of potential good things, and I think Sam's, held his own well throughout the evening until basically right at the very end he allowed himself to crack and he started complaining about having to, in the lobby, I think you had already left, about having to explain to his children why people are being mean to him on social media, which I found not super sympathetic, to be honest.
Yeah, I think as it goes with both Sam's and Robinson, which is if you're at the point in your life where you are like a, acquiring power to be the CEO of the second largest employer in the largest city in Alabama, or to be the president of the city council of the largest city in Alabama, you need to be able to roll with the punches. And I don't think we saw, like you said, for the most part, Sam's was able to do that until I guess he cracked and, got his feelings hurt by people on Reddit. But I think we definitely saw opportunities to build upon that. There's so much unclarity about how Huntsville Hospital operates and how it's governed. Even Sam said he was not sure what government entity, like if there was a federal government entity that could oversee Huntsville Hospital. So I think that there are still a ton of questions that need to be answered around governance and a lot of, we have a lot of demands, I think, around transparency of you shouldn't be able to, spend $500 million to become a healthcare monopoly without some questions before the deal is finalized.
Whitney Washington is Vice President of North Alabama Area Labor Council. Anything else that you wanted to add before we let you go?
Yeah, I think, in general, I just want to say that I am a District 1 resident. I did find his comments around us not having this little set very hurtful, and I'm very proud of my Councilwoman Watkins for standing up. And I really hope that her righteous anger is not forgotten in all of this. I've already seen some of the reporting from that evening just talk about her anger and not the comments that incited it. And I really don't want that to be forgotten as we talk about this.
All right. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks.
We've got our next guest in the Zoom. We'll be bringing him up in just a second. His name is Corey Kuykendall. He is the business manager for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 320 in North Alabama. Really excited for this conversation because about a year ago, workers at Skyworks in Decatur, Alabama, organized with the International Union of Operating Engineers, and since then, their employer has been less than friendly and forthcoming. So, Brother Kuykendall, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate you having me on this morning.
Can you talk a little bit about why the workers in Decatur wanted to organize in the first place?
We got a call last year and we started talking to them. A couple of individuals got together and reached out. Representation, number one, in the workplace. There were some things going on that they wasn't happy with, treatment from the employer, from the branch manager. So they just reached out, wanting to ask, what the possibility was of them becoming operating engineers or getting involved with our union. So we talked over a couple of times, met with them early one morning before they went to work, and those guys signed authorization cards that morning. So we got the ball rolling that day, filed for election. And surprisingly, we won 11-4 that day. So, or a couple of weeks later, after we filed the petition and got the election set up through the NLRB, held it there, of course, at their shop. But after that, some things just kind of, the company wasn't happy about it. They thought they were doing everything right to keep their employees satisfied on the job, but unfortunately, we filed several unfair labor practice charges against them. So, the way the board works, and of course with the government shutdown, some of those are just now getting across the desk to get an answer or a resolution on. So, hopefully, we get those going and get some answers and get some of
Yeah.
these guys back to work because there's a few of them terminated over them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that workers won the union election really overwhelmingly. I mean, it was vast majority of the workers. Very small shop. And you mentioned that a couple of the workers have been terminated in the opinion of the union and in those workers' opinion for their support of the union. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and some of the other ways that the employer has been reacting since then?
So the terminations wasn't shown that it was for in support of the union, but those that were terminated were union supporters. A couple of them, there was one specifically that was, or two that was for violating the company policy, their handbook, but the others were terminated just for frivolous actions, is what we would consider, and we expect those guys to get their jobs back, but the other things were just illegal things that the company had done. False statements had made about the union, and we've been bargaining. Since August, we met with the owner and the vice president, and just a couple of meetings. We had a tentative agreement through virtual meetings. They're from Buffalo, New York, so it was kind of difficult, as they put it, to travel down to Alabama to meet with us, but regardless, we did meet virtual, had an agreement, and then the very next week they backed out on it, and now this is their third attorney that they've hired to meet with us. The first two we never met, never got to the table. So from early September to late November before we ever got back to the bargaining table with the attorney, and it took another 4 months to get a signature on an agreement. And it just seems like by design they're trying to prolong the negotiations. They're unavailable to meet, or they only can meet for a limited time. So they've made it very difficult to take advantage of the time when we meet to really put forth the effort. So
Right.
it seems like each day we meet, we're only limited to like 6 hours, and then they have to quit for the day. So
Right.
we did get an agreement, we got it signed. And amongst all this, they've hired so-called union busters to come in and speak to the men on the yard there at the branch to try to dissuade them from being in the union. They've made false statements about our union, about our health care, things that they have limited knowledge about, but they've not once asked us about any of these things. But from what we've understand from the guys that have been on there that have spoken with these, they've taken notes and wrote down some questions and some things that they've told them, and they've come back to us, and we've presented them with the facts. We had a meeting a few weeks ago and put everything on the table. There were some guys that had questions, some things that had come back to us anonymously that they didn't want to speak in front of their coworkers because they thought they might could go back to work and be targeted. So we've tried to make them understand that as long as they go to work and do their job, they won't be without representation.
Right.
Since they won the election, we're representing them fully. Even one employee was disciplined, and we got to go in and have a sit down meeting with the branch manager and got a resolution. So that was later on, late last year, but it's still, our presence being there has made a difference in their relations in the shop, just from filing the election and all the UOPs that have been filed. They've
Right.
changed branch managers. So a lot of that, just us being present after this election has already changed the way they do business and the way the employees are being treated.
You mentioned the
They
contract. Yeah, you mentioned the contract negotiations and them hiring these anti-union consultants, and y'all are working with LaborLab. We're going to be talking later in the program to the executive director of LaborLab about their work more generally, but they're an employer watchdog organization that focuses specifically on the union busting industry, and they recently filed a complaint with the Department of Labor against Skyworks because these anti-union consultants have not done the mandatory filing that they're supposed to do, because workers are supposed to be able to know kind of who is talking to them, right? I mean, your union has to file reports with the Department of Labor. And so if these workers want to go, they can go and search up your name, IUOE Local 320, and they can figure out how many members y'all have, how much money you're making, all of these kinds of stuff. And they're supposed to be able to have that information on the union busters. And so right now, there are at least two people that workers have said have been in their shop talking to them about how bad unions are, that they don't even know their last name, much less how much the company is paying them. And they've also hired these outside attorneys for, you've said, at least $600 an hour, one of them that you know. And so the company is clearly spending a huge amount of money on this small unit of like 12 people or so. And so it's very clear to me, at least, that if they were to just engage in, maybe a week or two of good faith negotiations and then implement a fair contract, it would cost them less than all of this rigmarole of bringing in these outside consultants to try to dissuade these workers from being members of the union.
Absolutely. And we tried to put that cost out there at their last meeting to show what we've gathered that this company has spent on union busting, having those guys come in and speak to them, the 3 different attorneys, and the one attorney that we've met with, the hours that we've put into bargaining at the table here, on top of his travel down here and in his time, away from the table. They've spent tens of thousands of dollars just to dissuade this unit from being in the union. And the guys had asked early on, we understand that they're union in other areas, and they are. They're signatory with the operating engineers in other areas of the country. And in fact, I've got their agreements, and I printed them off and shown, hey, this is what the company does in other areas, and this is the benefits, and this is the wages that has been bargained for. And ironically, your company can give you a wage increase now, but they won't do it. And they're telling you they can't because the union is here. There's just so many false statements that have been made, and we're trying to help those guys in that unit understand.
Skyworks, by the way, is an equipment rental company. So like, commercial construction equipment and things like that. And you mentioned, and I had forgotten that they're union in other places. So why do you think it is that they don't just negotiate a contract in good faith and try to move on and have a positive working relationship with the union? I mean, it's not like the operating engineers or some, it's not like they're shutting down Skyworks locations in other places. There's you have a working relationship with this company in other locations. Why don't they just try to do that here?
Beats me. And we know just from talking to the guys how their work has picked up, because we've encouraged our other contractors that rent equipment at use Skyworks. They're going to be part of our union. We've negotiated for these guys. We're working on getting an agreement. And I know their business has picked up because the guys have told us they've got more equipment going out. There are more deliveries. And in fact, I've seen their trucks more regular now than I did before.
Wow. And so as we're wrapping up here today, I mean, that's insane that the company is benefiting in increased business because their workers are now union and they're just operating totally in bad faith and trying to walk all over these workers. What would your message be to the workers at Skyworks in Decatur now who might be tuning in, and anybody else that's thinking about organizing a union in their workplace?
So like I laid it out to these guys a couple of weeks ago when we met, regardless of what the company says, we're not the enemy. We're here to bargain for the workers. We want to make sure everyone has a fair, livable wage, employer paid benefits, and protections on the job. We're here for the workers, not the company. And we're going to do our part to make sure that everyone has those benefits from the job, and they're attainable. They are there. Mm-hmm. We can negotiate, we can get the company to the table, and we can bargain for better benefits. And that's what we're here to do.
Corey Kuykendall is business manager for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 320 here in North Alabama. Thank you for your time, brother.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate what you do.
All right. We're going to take a break, folks. We will be right back with the Valley Labor Report.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit nalc.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's That's right, folks. From the mountains of Tennessee to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. Today on the program, we just talked about Huntsville Hospital's monopoly. We also talked about Skyworks equipment rental trying to bust a union in Decatur, Alabama. We're about to talk about Workers' Memorial Day and Hyundai being found by the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health as one of their Dirty Dozen employers for the year of 2025. All that and more on today's program. If you'd like to send us a text, you can do that at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also send us a written note at tvlr.fm/contact or leave us a voicemail at the same number. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm. But we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at The Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. A huge portion of our funding comes directly from our listeners, so if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or make a one-time donation, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We've got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then you should think about getting your local district council or international to sponsor the show. You can reach out to us for more details on that. And since Adam is out of town at the Alabama State Council of Communication Workers Conference, I will tell you that we welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WGOW, WMSP, WCPT, KTNF, Means TV, or through your favorite podcasting app. We're getting on so many stations now, we might not be able to say them all. We're also proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, and we encourage our listeners to check that out at laborradionetwork.org. As most of you know, we're not media professionals, just diehard unionists who want to amplify the voices of the working class in the American South. We're hoping that this project can make a difference on that front, and we can't do it without you. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Every week in the South, workers organize new unions, they bargain new contracts, they fight for good legislation and against bad legislation, and they put the boss in their place. These are some of the stories that we found from April 17th to the 24th. This is Last Week in Southern Labor. Over the last week, 126 workers in 5 bargaining units unionized. 292 workers in 3 bargaining units withdrew their petition for a union election. 355 workers across 3 bargaining units voted against unionization. 23 workers in 1 bargaining unit defeated a decertification attempt. 168 workers in 6 bargaining units have gone public with their union campaigns, and 133 workers in 5 bargaining units are now in decertification campaigns. In new union campaigns, 19 workers at Starbucks in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, filed a petition to hold a union election with Starbucks Workers United. Workers likely pushed by their employer filed a petition to decertify Wells Fargo Workers United, affiliated with the Communication Workers of America, as the union representing 2 workers at Wells Fargo in Bradenton, Florida. 23 workers at Oak Ridge Utility District in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, filed a petition to hold a union election with the United Association of Plumbers and Pipefitters, UA Local 102. Workers likely pushed by their employer filed a petition to decertify the United Steelworkers as the union representing 20 workers at Georgetown Nursing Center in Georgetown, South Carolina. Workers likely pushed by their employer filed a petition to decertify the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers as the union representing 77 workers at Sherwin-Williams in Birmingham, Alabama. And 49 workers at Legends Global in Florence, South Carolina, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, IATSE Local 333. In election results, 6 workers at the Volunteer Energy Cooperative in Decatur, Tennessee, voted 4-2 in favor of unionization with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW Local 175. 71 workers at Majestic Care of Beckley in Beckley, West Virginia, Virginia voted 27-2 in favor of unionization with the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, District 1199. 22 workers at Starbucks in Johnson City, Tennessee voted 11-10 in favor of unionization with Starbucks Workers United, as did 23 more at a location in San Antonio, voting 10-7 in favor of unionization. 128 workers at Canfor Southern Pine in DeRidder, Louisiana voted 52-68 against unionization with the Southern Regional Council of Carpenters, Local 3101. This was a big bummer. You might remember that we talked to a worker who was fired for his union support about this campaign a month or two ago. 224 workers at ADUSA Transportation in Dunn, North Carolina voted 83-107 against unionization with the Teamsters, Local 391. And 23 workers at Veolia Water North America in Tampa, Florida voted 9-8 against decertifying the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE, Local 30. In strikes and bargaining updates, Wells Fargo workers and allies in the labor movement rallied in North Carolina to demand the company stop stalling and negotiate a fair contract. Workers have unionized with the Communication Workers of America, CWA, at 29 locations, but management has slow-walked negotiations. The union has filed over 60 unfair labor practices, and the employer has upped their anti-union campaign, with 2 weeks ago, workers at one of those locations decertifying the union. Their biggest raise ever. That's what 150 workers at Coors Lab Structures in Miami, Florida won, their union told us at the Valley Labor Report. Members of the Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA, Local 1652, ratified by 98% a new 3-year contract that includes a $2.65 an hour wage increase, along with a new holiday, increased pension contributions, and increased health and welfare benefit contributions from the employer. A 31% raise and more. That's what 200 Florida Teamsters who work for United Natural Foods Incorporated, UNFI, the primary distributor for Whole Foods, an Amazon-owned company, just ratified in their first union contract after organizing last year. The 5-year contract also includes access to Teamster health care, a pension, job security, just cause protections, and a strong grievance and arbitration clause for the warehouse workers. Since 2022, the Teamsters have organized more than 3,500 UNFI workers, growing the union's footprint to more than 5,500 members at the company nationwide. College professors continue to make less than they were before the pandemic. That's according to the preliminary results of the American Association of University Professors, AAUP-AFT, their annual faculty compensation survey. After seeing 2 years of real wage increases in 2023 and 2024, while still remaining below 2019 levels, the most recent year saw a real wage decrease of 0.4% when accounting for inflation. Faculty at private institutions fared even worse, seeing wages drop by more than 1% over the last year. College faculty wages and working conditions have been under attack for years, with graduate worker unions and other higher ed unions fighting back against the adjunctification of all faculty positions. In political and legislative updates, the AFL-CIO, the nation's largest federation of unions, released a short statement in response to Lori Chavez-DeRemer's resignation as Secretary of Labor. When we're in a crisis of costs going up, job insecurity due to AI and technology, and uncertainty across the economy, we need a labor secretary who understands working people and will work to make our lives better, not just be a rubber stamp for corporations' wish lists and gut the protections that we count on. That was the AFL-CIO's statement. Keith Sonderling is now acting labor secretary. He served previously as a Republican appointee in the Department of Labor and the EEOC and has done so for about 10 years. Prior to that, he worked at an employer-side labor and employment law firm in Florida. The Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, was instrumental in getting Chavez-DeRemer nominated and confirmed as Secretary of Labor. Her tenure was full of scandal, sexual assault allegations, and with basically nothing to show for it in terms of improving the lives of workers or protecting them from employer abuse. You have to wonder if Sean O'Brien is embarrassed. If we missed anything, let us know about your union updates at tvlr.fm/contact and subscribe to the newsletter at tvlr.fm, where you will get the exhaustive version of Last Week in Southern Labor in your email inbox every single week. Our next segment is going to be with Jessica Martinez. She is the executive director of the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, National COSH. We're going to be talking about their recent Dirty Dozen report, where they named some of the worst employers in the country. Really, this is a report that they release every single year. For Workers' Memorial Day. Workers' Memorial Day is a day of remembrance for particularly workers who were killed and injured on the job. Many people don't realize this, but literally hundreds of people in the United States every day die due to injury or illnesses that they got on the job or because of their job. It's a huge, huge problem in this country. And so the work that National COSH does to bring awareness to these sorts of things is incredibly important. And the Dirty Dozen report that they do every year tries to name and shame, some of the worst employers in the country, and explain a little bit of their of what these employers are doing. This year, there were several employers who have a presence in the South named in the report. Really, really not good, not good stuff that was going on here. In their press release about the report, they talk about how this comes as federal workplace health and safety penalties dropped by nearly 45% during this administration, according to Good Jobs First. Jessica Martinez in the press release said that every year we honor workers who have lost their lives on the job, and every year we see the same pattern: companies prioritizing profits over people. Have we got Martinez in the Zoom now? We do. So Martinez, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you on. Can you talk to us a little bit about the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health and what y'all do?
Absolutely. So we are a national network of worker centers, local COSH groups, unions, and community allies, essentially fighting for one simple principle: that every worker deserves to come home safe. We see that across this country, workers are being injured, they're being made sick, and killed in preventable ways, simply trying to earn a paycheck. And we really see too often that workers are carrying the biggest risk. Particularly Black workers, Latino workers, immigrant women, young workers, and low-wage workers. These are the communities that are at highest risk. And our network of 25 grassroots worker justice organizations are rooted across the United States, and we work directly with workers in dangerous conditions. We train worker leaders, we support campaigns for safer working conditions, we build collective power, push for stronger laws and enforcement, and we connect worker stories to research and policy change. Centering worker voices is at the core of our work. And although we're national, we're deeply rooted in the local efforts. And really, our belief is really simple, is that, the people closest to the danger are the closest to the solutions for safer workplaces.
You release this report, the Dirty Dozen report, every year around Workers' Memorial Day, Workers' Memorial Week. Can you talk to us about that as a holiday, as a day of remembrance, and why it's so important?
Absolutely. So, Workers' Memorial Day, or Workers' Memorial Week, as we also like to call it, just because we pay tribute to workers an entire week through different events across the country, is observed typically April 28th. And as you said, it is a day to remember workers, but particular workers who've been killed, injured, or made sick on the job. It's an opportunity for us to recommit ourselves to actions and campaigns that prevent these tragedies. So, it's really urgent for us. Our network takes it as a week of action, truly, and we highlight the reality of worker health and safety in this country, which is that one worker dies every 104 minutes in the United States. We know that more than 5,000 workers were killed in the latest federal count, and many more suffered disabling injuries and occupational disease. And many of these are very preventable. They're often called accidents, but they happen because hazards are either ignored, corners are cut, workers are not being trained. There's rampant retaliation when workers speak up, and enforcement by government agencies are very weak. So this is why we use this week as a way to bring awareness during Workers' Memorial Week, and we release our Dirty Dozen report as well during Workers' Memorial Week.
And so the Dirty Dozen report, that's why we wanted to get you on. Can you talk to us about that report and the goal of it every year? And then we can talk about this year's top lines.
Yeah, so every year National Kosh releases the Dirty Dozen, and these are 12 employers that reflect some of the most troubling and egregious employers. They present dangerous patterns harming workers. We do not choose the companies randomly. We review OSHA citations, enforcement records, worker testimony, lawsuits, other media investigations, and also community partner reports. So there is an ongoing pattern of harm. And this report is not just about the 12 companies, but it is about a broader system where we're seeing a theme of profits rise while worker protections really fall. And really across the Dirty Dozen, what we have found particularly there's some themes that we saw this year. And the report highlights issues such as extreme heat, without water, rest, or shade. We saw employers with dangerous machinery causing amputations and serious injuries, toxic dust and chemical exposure, wage theft and retaliation. We've seen child labor, subcontracting used to avoid responsibility, fear tied to immigration, enforcement, and ICE raids, weak penalties that fail to deter misconduct. So these are just some of the general themes. And one of the, other things that we highlighted, providing a landscape of health and safety in the United States, is that we know that under OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and has jurisdiction of enforcement and to enact laws that protect workers, particularly around occupational health and safety, that currently there's only about 1,800 inspectors that are responsible for 130 million workers, over 8 million workplaces. And at this pace, what we know is that it would take over 150 years to inspect every workplace just once. So this is really, again, our goal is to amplify this and really highlight that it is a system where too often violations become just another cost of doing business.
I guess it's so, I think so many people are so surprised at how much employers are able to get away with. We actually had, it's been years ago now, there were some business owners in the community locally that were kind of agitated by our programming because they felt like, oh, well, we don't talk about enough about how much risk that employers have, when it comes to employing people, and they, I think unfortunately misunderstood how actually little risk they had. They said, if somebody got injured or killed on one of our job sites, we could go to jail, and that just doesn't happen. That's just not a thing that really happens in this country, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, speaking about the number of inspectors, there's just not enough robust enforcement. And if there is enforcement, it's a slap in the wrist for some of these multi-million, billion-dollar industries and corporations and companies at times. The penalties are really low. They're really outdated, and it doesn't really provide much of an incentive to change the dynamic and provide, be able to really uplift workers from in a very simple human perspective of a dignified workplace. So what we're saying is that we provide the Dirty Dozen with a goal to truly bring light to the issues and provide a real worker story behind the statistics, but also bring attention to the need for resourcing our government agencies that provide enforcement. Throughout the country, there are some states that have state plan states. We know that in the South in particular, not many do. So they follow federal jurisdiction where really protections are a little bit weaker because we don't have robust laws. We don't have a state plan state that can specialize laws that protect the workers in that specific state. So we bring light to this. Many people are unaware. There are workers, I've sat in many, many trainings throughout my time as an organizer and educator. Many workers are unaware of who OSHA is at times. I've worked with some workers in some of the most dangerous industries, whether it's construction, residential housing. Many of them don't know that there is an agency that holds employers legally responsible for known hazards at the workplace. So we are doing that work on the ground through our COSH groups and our network, providing that information. Knowledge is power, as common as that is said. It truly does hold true in our work and in centering worker voices.
We mentioned that there were multiple employers with strong presences in the South that made this report. I wanted to talk about some of them, and I wanted to start with the Hyundai-Kia supply chain. That's a story that we've been covering for years now on this program, starting really back in 2022 when Reuters broke a story of I think it was like a 12 or 13-year-old girl who was working at one of the suppliers' plants in Montgomery. And so this is the first time that this supply chain has been named in this report. Can you talk to us about some of the things that you found and the volume of things that you found happening within this supply chain?
Yeah, so Hyundai-Kia is a major global brand that's really rapidly expanding its southern operations. Their manufacturing, as you mentioned, footprint is mainly in Alabama and Georgia. They were included because the record across the supply chain is deeply troubling. We went back to 2015, between 2015 and 2025. There have been 12 workers that died in incidents tied to the companies in the Hyundai-Kia U.S. supply chain. OSHA has cited companies in the supply chain for 854 violations. There's about 70% that were categorized as serious, repeat, or willful violations. OSHA has a strategy where it stratifies its violations and penalties. And we know that there was, more than 6.2 million in penalties were assessed through those investigations. So, between 2020 and 2022, at least 9 Alabama supplier facilities tied to Hyundai-Kia were found to have illegally employed children. And we know that in one federal case, the Department of Labor named Hyundai Motor Manufacturing Alabama as a joint employer of a 13-year-old child allegedly working up to 60 hours a week at a stamping company under its operational control. So, workers, we are in contact with workers. When we released the report, we were able to bring courageous workers from some of these workplaces, provide testimony. Many of them reported low wages than other Alabama, in comparison to other Alabama out of supply chain workers. And some of this research links some of this wage suppression also to the incarcerated labor systems. And we know that last year in September, we had federal agents raided Hyundai LG battery plant under construction in Elabel, Georgia, detaining over 470 subcontracted workers. And that really matters because ICE raids create a climate of fear. When workers fear detention or retaliation, they are less likely to report injuries, wage theft, discrimination, or unsafe conditions. So we are seeing this pattern in not just Hyundai-Kia supply chain, but also throughout other Dirty Dozen employers that were listed, using the ICE raids as a leverage point, as we saw with DR Horton, which was another company we mentioned in the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah, I mean, the ICE being used as a cudgel by employers is something that has been happening, I mean, for decades, really. You could even track it back to, INS being used in the same way before ICE was founded after 9/11. And the most shocking example that I always try to talk about when I get the opportunity, because it is so gross and so blatant, was, I believe it was a 2018 or 2019 raid of poultry plant workers in Mississippi. It was the largest workplace raid in the history of the country. Some 600 workers were arrested or detained by ICE. And that was a union plant where the union had won, literally only a couple of months prior, a huge sexual harassment lawsuit, got some $2 million for the workers. And then it just so happened that a couple of months after that, after either the settlement or the verdict or whatever it was, the workers got the money. Then ICE comes and harasses and breaks up all of these families. And despite the fact that these were the workers who were being sexually harassed by the employer, and it was not the employer who was punished ultimately for, the sexual harassment. Fine was ultimately a slap on the wrist, and they certainly weren't punished for hiring undocumented immigrants. It was the immigrants themselves who were punished by ICE, and ultimately, I think that what we saw was union activity decline, and the employer ended up getting more and more control over these workers, and the workers were less likely to speak out. And so that's something that I really don't think is appreciated enough.
Absolutely. And really, when immigration enters the workplace, they do more than detain people. It's they send a clear message to every worker watching, is essentially stay quiet, keep your head down, don't complain. That climate of fear makes all workers less safe. And that's a connection we've clearly made, for as long as our Kosh movement has existed, is that we need to ensure that all workers are protected, independent of immigration status. Workers should not fear to speak up and use their voice to say, hey, I need this equipment to make sure I can come home safe after a long workday, right? And really, it's the fear of speaking up about safety or wage theft. It triggers folks just to be silent. We know that, like I mentioned earlier, workers are afraid to report unsafe machinery, wage theft, harassment, and so forth. So it really does create a chilling effect beyond those targeted in the workplace. It impacts the community and families. So it interrupts the ecosystem of our communities in such a wide scale.
Hyundai-Kia's supply chain being named in the Dirty Dozen report comes after a couple of other reports about working conditions in Hyundai-Kia. Jobs of America put out one titled "Hidden in Plain Sight: Safety, Labor, and Environmental Violations Driving Hyundai-Kia's Supply Chain," and they uncovered documented labor violations among some of those companies, including child labor, preventable injuries and fatalities, and coercive prison labor. That's something else that you talked about in the Dirty Dozen report, is how prison labor has been used in these supply chains. Just really, really terrible things. And, really neither the federal government nor the state government is doing much to try to hold Hyundai-Kia in particular, but many of these companies accountable. You think about almost 1,000 violations, but only $6.2 million in penalties. For Hyundai-Kia, that is just not that much. And that's over 10 years. $6 million over 10 years ultimately is not going to stop them from using these illegal tactics to try to squeeze more value out of their workers. It's just going to be considered a cost of doing business. There were a couple of other employers that I wanted to make sure that we had time for. Maker's Pride. Can you talk to us about that company and what you found about their practices?
Yeah, absolutely. So Maker's Pride, formerly known as Hardside Food Solutions, they manufacture and package food products for major household brands. And they were also included because of their long history of worker harm. We found that migrant children are working overnight shifts in dangerous factory jobs. The company was also repeatedly cited for machine hazards causing amputations and severe injuries. The report notes that, there was at least 11 amputations between 2019 and 2020. And workers just report harsh treatment. We had one worker that said when someone asked to go to the bathroom, permission is given up to an hour later. So we're talking about really impacting people's dignity at the work site. And we know that there was also federal labor officials also found unlawful conduct during a union campaign in Kentucky. So these corporations and companies are doing all they can, right, to break any sort of unionization efforts from workers, despite workers finding an extreme need to organize. So we're seeing child labor, unsafe machinery, also just really extreme weather conditions in these workplaces.
And Well-Made Industries Manufacturing. Can you talk to us about why they were included in the report?
Well-Made was we had Well-Made, we also had Consolidated Catfish. Well-Made Industries marketed itself as a growing U.S. manufacturer. But within months of opening, OSHA inspections found like very serious hazards, and they are in the flooring manufacturing industry. We also found issues of machine dangers, entrapment risk, excessive noise, electrical amputation hazards. And then in March 2025, multi-agency labor trafficking investigation raided the plant, and the owner, George Chen, was arrested and charged with knowingly subjecting and transporting and harboring individuals for labor servitude. So federal officials said dozens of workers were rescued from labor exploitation. We were able to get testimony from workers, and one worker said that thinking you're coming over here to get a better life, and it turns out to be a nightmare. And that same day, fire officials also found blocked exits, sprinkler failures, flammable hazards, electrical dangers that eventually led to the shutdown of the plant. And again, I think what, Well-Made in particular shows how fear and exploitation often go hand in hand with unsafe conditions. When we have workers that are trapped with a fear and being silenced, safety violations are never, far behind in these particular cases. So that is Well-Made. And again, I do invite your listening audience to get a report. I'm just going to throw it out there, nationalkosh.org. If you look at Dirty Dozen, you can get the full report. It's very digestible, very visually beautiful. You can also see images of some of the work sites. So invite folks to take a read, to do a deeper dive on some of these companies.
Yes, absolutely. And we've been talking throughout how, there's really a lack of accountability for these employers. What are some of National Kosh's recommendations to try to improve that accountability and increase protection for workers?
Yeah, so I mean, what needs to change, I think, is we spoke to this, right? The penalties are low, the enforcement is not enough. We don't have enough inspectors. So we do need stronger enforcement, right? Not guidelines, not recommendations to the industries, not these voluntary programs. We need an increase in OSHA funding to be able to hire more inspectors that speak multiple languages and can talk to the workers directly without any fear of retaliation. We need to increase penalties. There also needs to be corporate accountability, hold lead brands responsible for supply chains. There's a snowball effect of like subcontractor and subcontractor workers sometimes are not clear who their direct employer is, making it even more difficult to hold employers accountable. National Kosh has a very solid, fired up Workers for Heat Justice campaign, and this was a big theme throughout the report that we saw conditions of extreme heat for both indoor and outdoor workers. So we are calling that that OSHA pass a federal heat standard that provides water, shade, and rest. As like basic as that sound, we don't have something that really calls for that and demands that employers provide potable water for both indoor and outdoor workers. We also call for stronger worker protections, anti-retaliation protections, protect immigrants who report hazards. That was also a big theme that workers, have real fears of being separated from their families. Beyond their livelihood, it's also being separated from their families in cases. And really that we allow workers to use their voice. We support unions and organizing. Workers also need a seat at the table. National Kosh, our work is at the core and the foundation is centering worker voices. And then we hope that we created the Dirty Dozen to amplify worker conditions and bring, hidden abuse into public view. So it's really an opportunity for public accountability. The report was just released a couple days, and we'll be watching closely to see whether companies change, regulators act, and if there is any public pressure that creates movement. So that is the goal of the Dirty Dozen report, to be able to hold many of these companies accountable.
Jessica Martinez is the Executive Director of the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health. You can check out their Dirty Dozen report online. Jessica Martinez, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a break, folks, and we will be right back. The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. You can send us a text or leave us a voicemail there at any time. TVLR.fm/contact. You can leave us a written message there as well. We'll be opening the phone lines in the second half of the program after we have had our interviews. Monday, April 27th, is going to be the beginning of a week of action by labor organizations and community allies. Alabama Arise is one of those allied organizations. They have a list of events on their website. So if you Google Alabama Arise Workers Week of Action, you can check out a bunch of the things that are going on. On Monday, we will be hosting a virtual kickoff call with speakers from Alabama Arise, Jobs to Move America, United Campus Workers, and more. You can watch the live stream at tvlr.fm/Mayday26. On Tuesday, Alabama Arise and the League of Women Voters of Alabama will lead a workshop on common sense economics for Alabama at the Grace Presbyterian Church in Tuscaloosa. On Friday, May the 1st, from 10 to 6, 5051 Huntsville and the North Alabama Area Labor Council will be among the hosts of an all-day event at the Butler Green at Campus 805 in Huntsville. The event will feature live music and a performance from Lee Baines, so make sure you check that out. You'll be able to see me there as well. There will also be workshops on labor history and community organizing. Also on Friday, May 1st, the United Campus Workers at Jacksonville State University will host Labor Fest at the Public Square. It'll be a family-friendly community event featuring live music, games, and a bouncy house. Also on May 1st in Mobile, Mayday Strong will host a screening of Inequality for All at the Crescent Theater. And in Dothan on May the 1st, 5051 Dothan will hold a peaceful protest outside of the Houston County Courthouse in Dothan. Luis Robledo, a coalition manager for the Southern program at Jobs to America, said the labor movement is stronger than ever in Alabama. This week, we honor the memory of fallen workers and stand in solidarity with all Alabama workers organizing for better wages, better conditions, better benefits, and more respect from Huntsville to Mobile. Adam left us a voicemail about the event. Let's play clip 1.
Hey, y'all. Adam Keller here. Sorry I couldn't be in studio today, but I wanted to call and just let folks know about next week because we have 2 working class holidays. April 28th is Workers' Memorial Day, which is a day set aside to honor and remember all the workers who have lost their lives, their health, their wellness on the job, right? Workers who are killed, made sick, injured on the job. April 28th is a day to honor and recognize those lost souls and the working folks who struggle so hard to put, food on their table. And of course, Friday, May 1st is May Day, International Workers' Day, which is a global celebration of working class solidarity. And a lot of cities and regions across the country, and in Mayday's case, across the world, have a lot of occasions and a lot of ways to mark these dates. But we found that there's not been a lot happening in Alabama in recent years. So we are trying to kick off a week of action because we have these two working class holidays in the same week. And we hope that you'll tune in Monday night for a special live stream of the Valley Labor Report at 6 o'clock Central, where we'll be profiling campaigns, struggles, events, and organizations across the state of Alabama and how folks can get engaged and get involved to build working class power here in the state. We're hoping this can become an annual tradition and keep building bigger and better next year and, of course, building into May Day 2028. So look forward to seeing you all Monday night. Check out the May Day events. Check out my Tuscaloosa workshop on the 28th, and we'll see you soon. All power to the workers. Solidarity forever, y'all.
Adam also has an opinion piece in the Alabama Political Reporter talking about the week of action. It's titled, Alabama Runs on Workers. It Shouldn't Run Over Them, talking about, the problems that workers face in Alabama and the problems that workers face when we try to fight back. Talks about a recent national study that ranked Alabama among the worst states in the country for working people. So check that out if you haven't read it yet. Alabama Political Reporter. Adam Keller is the author. Alabama Runs on Workers. It Shouldn't Run Over Them. Hope y'all check that out, and hope we see you on Monday night virtually and in person in Huntsville on Friday. Every day across the South, workers are killed on the job, stolen from, discriminated against, or sexually harassed. Sometimes the employers are caught. These are last week's stories. This is Boss Watch.
Boss Watch.
In Texas, the U.S. Department of Labor has recovered $63,000 for 8 workers after an investigation found an area restaurant violated federal wage and hour laws. The department's wage and hour division found that El Beto's Tacos, doing business as Beto's Restaurant and Bar, failed to pay overtime hours worked and illegally deducted wages from tipped employees in violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Division investigators determined that on average, employees worked over 8 overtime hours every week, but Beto's did not pay them the required overtime premium of time and a half per hour. Additionally, the employer did not compensate workers for duties performed after completion of their shifts. The division also found that the employer deducted uniform expenses from the wages of tipped employees, resulting in workers being paid less than the minimum wage for all hours worked. The Wage and Hour Division Acting District Director Charles Frazier in Houston, Texas, said that wage violations, including failing to track and pay for all hours worked, continue to be a major concern for workers in the food services industry. The Wage and Hour Division offers assistance to employers to help them avoid these kinds of violations and will continue to assure that workers get all the pay they have earned. In South Carolina, Florence, a Comfort Keepers franchisee providing in-home caregiving in Florence, South Carolina, agreed to pay $324,000 and furnish other relief to resolve a discrimination charge filed with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. In its charge investigation, the EEOC found reasonable cause to believe that the company, which provides services across South Carolina, discriminated against a new employee attending orientation in November 2023, violating 4 different federal anti-discrimination laws. During orientation, the employee notified Comfort Keepers of her pregnancy, and the company instructed her to obtain medical clearance. The EEOC found reasonable cause to believe that when the employee then notified the company of a pregnancy-related limitation, the company failed to accommodate and eventually fired her, although the employee could perform the essential functions of the position with or without a reasonable accommodation. The EEOC investigation found reasonable cause to believe that the company violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act by requiring an unlawful medical exam, failing to accommodate, and firing the new employee. The investigation also found reasonable cause to believe that the company's statewide hiring practice of requiring disclosure of family medical information violated the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. During the pre-litigation conciliation process, the company agreed to provide monetary relief totaling $324,000 to the affected employee and more than 1,000 former and current candidates and employees. Florence C.K. will also provide anti-discrimination training for all human resources personnel, managers, and decision makers, and post EEOC notices, including a notice regarding the resolution of this matter in conspicuous places. The EEOC will monitor compliance with the agreement for 2.5 years. In Florida, the U.S. Department of Labor cited a Florida roofing employer for willfully exposing employees to safety hazards after an employee suffered fatal injuries and another was seriously injured when falling from a 2-story residence. The department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration investigators found that on September 24th, 2025, 2 workers from Max Home Services, operating as Passett Roofing and Solar Energy, were installing tarp when they slipped from the roof into an empty pool. One employee suffered fatal injuries and another sustained serious injuries. The agency cited the employer for willfully allowing both employees to work without personal fall protection at heights of over 20 feet. The employer also failed to adequately train employees to recognize fall hazards and did not implement a hazard communication program for workers using hazardous chemicals. The agency cited the employer with 1 willful and 2 serious violations and proposed $172,000 in penalties. If we missed anything, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact and subscribe to our newsletters at tvlr.fm, and you will get Boss Watch as well as Last Week in Southern Labor in your email inbox every single week. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the YouTube and Facebook chat. TWY87 asks, what are your thoughts on Lori Chavez DeRemer's resignation? I think it's good. She should have resigned a long time ago, and Sean O'Brien should be embarrassed for his, for his support of her and continued support through all of the allegations and scandal at the Department of Labor. I mean, that's really the most embarrassing thing, because it's one thing to say, oh, well, maybe she'll be a good Secretary of Labor. When she was in Congress as a Congresswoman, she supported the PRO Act, and so maybe she's the best that we can get as working people under a Republican administration, and so maybe we support her. That's one thing. But you should have really backed off your vociferous support of her when she walked back her support of the PRO Act during her confirmation hearings, because that should be an indication that she only supported the PRO Act because she wanted to basically shield herself in some pro-labor bona fides during her election, which she then lost. And then as soon as those pro-labor bona fides were no longer helpful in her political career, she was willing to drop them. So you should have been suspicious at that point, but you should have dropped her. Absolutely should have dropped her a couple of months ago when all of this stuff started coming out about her scandalous and unethical and corrupt behavior at the Department of Labor, her husband being barred from Department of Labor policy because of his alleged sexual harassment of Department of Labor employees, her misuse of government funds for personal and party reasons, just a totally unserious person who is completely undeserving of our support or loyalty. And yet, Sean O'Brien, even in the middle of all of this scandal, he said that she is one of the most engaged and one of the best secretaries of labor that we have had, and the Teamsters support her, even as all of this was going on. So, I think it's good that she resigned. She should have resigned sooner. Hopefully, she'll have some sort of criminal charges for what she did and what her husband did, the way that she fleeced the taxpayer. And Sean O'Brien should absolutely be embarrassed of the way that he trusted her at the beginning of this process and his continued support of her as all of this started coming out. That's what I think about Lori Chavez's resignation. We're about to go into overtime. That's the second half of the program. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at The Valley Labor Report. We will be talking to a UAW, somebody organizing with the UAW in Michigan about how they are fighting union busters. We're going to be talking to Bob Funk, Executive Director and founder of LaborLab, about LaborLab's really important work uncovering the union buster industry. And we will take your calls at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. But if you don't do that, we really appreciate you taking the time and listening and hanging out with us this morning or this evening, however you find us. And we'll see you next week. You've been listening to the Valley Labor Report. You can find us, TVLR.fm, and all of those places. Anywhere you find anything online, TVLR.fm/store. You can buy our merch there. But if you don't find us online, if you don't keep listening, then we look forward to hanging out with you again next week. All right, we're off the radio now. Appreciate everybody hanging out. We're going to take a break really quick, and we will be right back with Overtime.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
What?
This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, now broadcasting up north in Chicago and Minneapolis, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley and the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. We appreciate you spending some time with us. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, the phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a text message at the same number or a written email at tvlr.fm/contact. We've got our first guest in the Zoom. Corin Lawrence is a STEAM educator at the Michigan Science Center. She is also a member of the UAW's Volunteer Organizing Committee at the Michigan Science Center. We wanted to talk to her about their union campaign up in Michigan. Corin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, hello. What's up?
It's great to have you on. And yeah, really excited for this conversation. Can you talk to us first about why you and your coworkers decided to organize?
Yeah, so I think there's just like a general lack of respect, empathy of kind of like the conditions that people have and, you know, just lack of respect for being human. Things like an aggressive point system, ideally healthcare that could help back up how aggressive that point system is, wages that can, you know, rise or match or even outpace inflation so that we can keep the buying power that we currently have.
Right, yeah.
I think just a lot of us kind of feel that we are kind of sucked and sapped for like a passion tax because like we care about our community or science or education, and our managers, you know, the boss, they see that we care about these things, but they can't provide anything other than saying like, hey, but we care, we know that you care about these things, so you should continue to give all of yourselves for that without having anything to show for us, despite often saying how important we are. When you look at all of the reviews, they'll say like, yeah, they might have like a few broken exhibits, but oh, the staff, they're very passionate, they're very accommodating, they helped us to have a great time.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that is really an underappreciated, I think, point about why so many people organize and why so many people should organize, because, you know, the wages and the benefits and the healthcare and all of those things, that is, you know, that's that's usually the headline stuff. But so much of what people want, what workers want as humans, as people, is that respect and dignity and you know, not having to kind of sacrifice your whole self at the altar of the company that you work for. And so, you know, speaking of that dignity and respect and the lack of it that y'all have at this company, after the campaign went public, your employer hired some anti-union consultants.
Yep. ALG, American Labor Group.
Yeah. And so what were some of the first signs that you noticed they had hired these guys, and how has that made you feel?
Yeah, well, so the first thing, and like they were playing dumb, and whether if they were like actually like playing dumb or they had no idea what the hell was happening, still unsure, but you know, they were playing kind of like an email tag with our organizer, Jason. And like, we're like, why are they taking so long to just like respond to this? They were stalling for time. And we're like, well, the only reason they'd probably be stalling for time is like they're trying to prepare some sort of campaign on their end to stall us, to push back. So that was something that we were kind of ready. And as part of the organizing committee, as you know, trying to tell people, warn people like, hey, there might be a chance that they're going to hire people to dissuade us, to say like, hey, actually this union thing, dues, will you actually get anything out of it? Third party. And so just the fact that they were kind of, you know, playing this like neutral game for a while where they weren't trying to act aggressively or passively. They were just kind of sitting there doing nothing. We're like, that's kind of odd. And since ALG has come on, they've just kind of been saying like, you know, hey, you know, if you want to come see us, come talk to us. We'd love to have you. So first it started out with like a 1 hour time slot that you can come in every day, then find somebody to cover you on the floor. And then they noticed nobody was coming. So I was like, all right, we have 2 time slots. And nobody came. And now, most recently, they have 3 time slots. And yet nobody comes. Whenever we head upstairs to the management office, Jim will always like kind of pop his head up like, oh, somebody's coming. And dang, nobody's actually here.
So they haven't done any of the mandatory everybody has to be in the room and listen to this person yet. It's all been kind of voluntary office hours sort of deal.
Yeah, and like we're probably about 2 weeks out from our election. I think things are going to be starting to feel a little bit more aggressive and pressured as we get closer and closer to the crunch time, to the big day, but nothing super in our face yet. They've been leaving like little cards for us to scan, you know. Some of our managers are a bit like, you know, do whatever you want with this, but you can scan it, you can don't. So they've been trying to make it as well known as possible.
They have so far not filed anything for this specific campaign. They're required to file 30 days from the beginning of service, and so I don't think they've hit that deadline yet. And even though they could file beforehand, it takes half an hour literally to fill out the information that you have to for the Department of Labor. It's just basically who is it, what is the union that you're targeting, and what is your rate of pay, and what are you doing. It's like 4 things, literally takes 30 minutes. They could do it at any time so that they could ensure that the workers have all of the information that they would want to have about who are these people coming in and telling me how to vote or how I should vote, or, you know, trying to make me have this or that opinion about a union. They're not doing that. I would argue on purpose. They don't want you to have the information before the election. But, you know, there is some information that's out there about American Labor Group. They typically, you know, every contract is different, but, you know, they typically make between $200 and $450 an hour with on a per day basis between $1,800 and $3,200 a day. One of the president of this company makes, you know, hundreds of at least $150,000 a year. They make significant amounts of money. You know, what and so I guess I'm curious about, you know, about that. Like, what do you and your coworkers make about the fact that your company is paying these people so much money to come in and try to kind of propagandize you about the union?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's like most upsetting to us, because like we're a small unit, or like a small 2B unit, probably about like 30 people. And so we're all tight knit. We know each other. We're looking out for each other. We're pretty damn sure that whoever comes out to vote, it's going to be yes, going to be either unanimous vote or near unanimous. But we probably make like, I don't know, top of my head, like let's say like $110, $120 a day. And the fact that these people are making double, triple, quadruple potentially what we're making a day just so they can dissuade us. Like, we love to talk about how this place loves to spend money on things that make no sense. And truly, this is one of those things that make no sense, because we know that they know that we're pretty unified on this, that we're not going to back down. And the fact that they're paying this dude to sit in a room for several hours while none of us come up to talk to him is pretty infuriating for all of us, because, you know, I don't want to get into all the stupid things that I think they spend their money on, but you know, things like, hey, you know, maybe we used to have our 30-minute lunch break be paid. It got put to unpaid a few months ago. Like, could we have that back, please? Instead of spending money on Jim Monica to come in and sit and do nothing and not even be able to spread his propaganda. Like, I don't want him to, but like,
yeah. I mean, if they're going to pay him, he should at least be doing something. Yeah.
Not zero value for this man.
Yeah, that's that is pretty funny. You know, I mean, it must be an easy, you know, it's got to be easy money, you know, just sit down in an office for an hour, not talk to anybody, and bada bing, you got another $400 in your pocket. I mean, that must be nice to be able to do that. And so had you and your coworkers heard about union busters and these anti-union consultants before you started the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the the demographic of like the people who work there are uh like we're like in a college town surrounded like like metro area. Like a lot of us like have pretty favorable already views of unionizing and like collective labor, but
you said that you're in a college town. Were or are any of you or your coworkers in graduate worker unions while you were at college?
Uh, I think like I know a few of us have like used to like maybe like work a union job, but like also like right like we're in like heart of UAW, right? Like
right.
that's open to help organize us. So like it everybody has a fairly union, and people who like aren't educated on union, like there's like I've been like reading up all about like how to prepare for this union, like how to like help people and inoculate people. So I knew union busters were a thing. Some of the people who I talked to, like when we were like laying the groundwork, they're like, "Hey, yeah, I heard that like because there was like campaign 10 years ago, like, hey, I heard they're gonna be on some busting type stuff." I was like, okay, we're gonna have to like be careful. We're gonna have to, you know, not be lax about thinking that it's gonna go perfectly smooth. But yeah, I think a few of us knew, and we've been trying to prepare each other to expect it.
What we talked a little bit about this, but is there anything else that you would want to talk about the effect that this has had on your coworkers, the union busters being brought in and what they've done so far?
I would say that like obviously every place is different. I think like some people they're gonna have concerns about the union, and so like the idea of talking to the consultant is appealing to them, but for us, everything that they've done has just only pushed us closer together and pushed us to be like more ready to vote and to act as a collective, act as a voice, one voice. It's everything that they've done has just kind of felt insulting and demeaning, and so having brought on this consultant, we're all very firm in our position, and it's like every choice that they've done has kind of shown that they don't expect anything from us. I think it's shown how little that they expect from us.
Yeah, I mean, going back to kind of a lack of respect. And so, this question may not be super relevant to your unit because it sounds like most of the actions that the union busters have taken has sort of negatively polarized people against the company rather than against the union. And you've got my phone number, so feel free to reach out to me. You said that you're anticipating the pressure to increase over the next couple of weeks, so do feel free to reach out to me and call back in if there are if they start doing anything crazier. But has there been anything that they have said or a message or a talking point that they've used that have made some of the people in your bargaining unit kind of scratch their heads and maybe go, oh, are they right? And if yes, how have you and your pro-union coworkers responded to that?
I think really like we've been kind of understaffed the past several months. We've had, fortunately, some new hires, but something that I've noticed that I think they're trying to do to deter kind of the newer people is anybody who they think is involved in being part of the organizing committee or party leadership or part of starting this push. They've been very open about berating and correcting and setting a polite example of, new employees. Let's correct Liz right in front of these two to tell them that, like, hey, here's all the things you did wrong, even though Liz did everything correct. They're trying to put us down as nicely as possible. And I think that is them trying to show that, hey, we still have the power over you. We're going to use it to discourage people who are further connected from this union, to not want to be a part of it.
Right, right. And so how have y'all how are y'all trying to kind of fight back against that and against the rest of the things that the company and the Union Busters is doing?
I think like a part of it is just, talking to, new people who are kind of further on the outskirts of this kind of union push, like how they're feeling, like how like, hey, you saw that, like, what did you think about that? And they'll be like, a lot of times, like, that was kind of weird. Like, yeah, that was kind of weird, right? I think it's trying to show them like that thing that just happened, like we're trying to avoid that. We just like want a level playing field where there's respect, there's rules of engagement, right? There's somebody like a steward who can help us out to make sure that everything is above board and everything is done correctly and done professionally. And like I think when you like a lot of times I think when you talk to people who are unfamiliar with the process of unionizing and like how unions are structured, if you just talk to them like, hey, we just basically want respect, we want uh, standards and practices that are followed by all contractually, people pretty easily get on board with that.
Mm-hmm. Right. My last question that I wanted to ask you before we let you go is, we got a voicemail a couple of weeks ago about how so much of the conversation about unions and the importance of organizing revolves around kind of blue collar construction workers, and less of the conversation is around, maybe more service or white collar type work. And I think that your job very clearly fits into the white collar sort of,
That less
knowledge
traditional
labor
field.
class, right? And so
yeah,
I what do you why do you think that it's important for even or potentially especially knowledge, quote unquote, knowledge workers or white collar workers to organize and to be a part of the labor movement, as well as kind of the blue collar auto workers and coal miners?
yeah. So this is the big thing that I often think about as to why I want to unionize. The point system that I talked about. We get 1 hour of PML, paid medical leave, for every 30 hours we work. We're usually scheduled for 29 hours. And again, that does not calculate our unpaid break. So let's take that down to about 26 hours. So to have about a full day's worth of PML, we're going to need to work 2.5, 3 months to be off for a day. I don't know about you, but I get sick. Do you get sick?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I get sick. And so any unexcused
or you might
absence,
have doctor's appointments or a dentist appointment.
Yeah, any
right.
unexcused absence, that's 2 points. There's a scaling amount, 8 points, you get terminated. So even if I do get sick, I need a doctor's note. Well, to get a doctor's note, I'm going to have to, again, like I said, I don't have a car. I have to take a bus or some sort of way to get to the doctor's office, and I have to pay for the doctor. And I'm pretty much used a full day's pay to have my absence excused, and I've lost money just to make sure that I don't get points, to make sure that I can continue to work at a job that I like, I enjoy, and I think provides a valuable service to the community, to students, to just everyone here in our city. And that's really not fair for anybody. I just want to be able to know that if I get sick, if my friends get sick, if my coworkers get sick, that we can get sick and then come back in when we're feeling right, to make sure that our coworkers and our guests are going to be okay, and that they don't get what we get, and that we're actually able to continue our work and do the things that we care about. So I think that is why I think, labor organizing, unionizing is something that's for everybody, because people are humans. People need to just live and survive. I think anybody who's working, 40 hours a week at pretty much any job, they just deserve a fundamental level of human respect and human decency, like being able to get sick and know that if you get sick, you can go back to work, keep on that grind, making money so that you can pay your rent, that you can get groceries. And that's why I think, the labor movement is something that we can all benefit from, and something that all workers, I think, can get behind and try and organize with.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, so, No doubt there is a sort of experiential difference between working a white-collar job, quote-unquote, and a blue-collar job, but so much of the problems fundamentally are very similar. And, you know, the kinds of things that blue-collar workers and white-collar workers are going to want to bargain over are very similar. And, you know, the fundamental fact of workers deserving respect and a voice and power on the job is going to be the same. You deserve that whether you work in a coal mine, in an auto plant, or at the Michigan Science Center. So, Cora and Lawrence, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure to call in if anything cool or drastic happens.
All right. We'll look forward to it and look forward to seeing a successful union election here in May.
All right. Take care.
All right. We got another interview for you. Let's go ahead and play our interview with Bob Funk, Executive Director and founder of LaborLab. We have on the line Bob Funk, founder and Executive Director of LaborLab, an employer watchdog organization. Bob, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. Really excited to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me, Jacob. It's always great to be on this show. You all do amazing work.
It's great to have you, and same to you. Folks who aren't familiar with LaborLab, you definitely need to go check them out, laborlab.us. And, you know, really understand that they're in the same way that we try to be a resource to unions across the country, particularly in the South, but across the country. You know, we want to elevate union campaigns and have workers on the program as often as possible. And LaborLab also wants to be a resource for people. So particularly their specialty is tracking union busting consultants. And so if you have people or you anticipate people coming in during a union or a contract campaign and you want more information about the people that your employer has bought to come and propagandize your fellow workers, you should reach out to them, laborlab.us. But Bob, how did you found Labor? Like, what was the impetus for the founding of LaborLab? And can you talk a little bit more about what y'all do?
Yeah, the genesis of LaborLab, like so much in this moment, really came out of the pandemic. We saw obviously an increased interest in organizing. It just amplified what already was the case. The fact of the matter is that more than half of Americans want to belong to unions, but a shrinking number of Americans do. So there's clearly a disconnect here. And the disconnect is that it is incredibly difficult in this country to start a union. So we wanted to do what we could to support workers, not just on the organizing front, but actually responding to the millions, if not billions of dollars that are spent every year to repress workers. Because the only way we're going to get union density up to where it should be is if we hold corporations, their consultants, their attorneys accountable to the rights that American workers are supposed to enjoy. And the fact of the matter is that there wasn't much of a spotlight being shined on most of the members of the industry, the consultants, the attorneys. So a lot of the times workers launch a campaign and there's kind of a black ops team that comes in and does everything in their power to deflate, demoralize, and defeat the union. And unfortunately, a lot of workers, we were fighting blind, and a group of us realized that there is a lot of information out there that can be utilized to empower workers during campaigns by exposing the union busting tactics and the funding sources and the true identities of who a lot of these busters are.
And so much of this, they're at least supposed to be reported and very public. And a lot of the information, to be fair to them, is out there, but it takes a little bit of digging, and that's like a really big part of kind of the value that y'all provide to union campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, a union election is an election. It's supposed to be transparent. You're supposed to have all the facts before you cast your ballot. And the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of union busting consultants and attorneys do not play by the rules, specifically transparency and disclosure rules. And why do they not play by those rules? Because they know that if workers find out why they're actually there or how much they're getting paid, and we're talking thousands of dollars a day per consultant, they're going to lose credibility. So it is in the interest of the union busting industry to remain in the shadows as much as possible. Unfortunately, that interest flies in the face of federal law that says that you are supposed to be transparent about these agreements. Unfortunately, we have a massive compliance gap in this country. While unions play by the rules overwhelmingly when it comes to disclosure and transparency laws, the exact opposite is true for employers and union busters. And unfortunately, lawmakers and rule makers have allowed this disparity in transparency to go on for 6, 7 decades since these transparency laws were put in place. And that really puts workers at a disadvantage. I mean, we have documented instances of union busters arriving and straight up lying to workers about who they are. They'll say that they are experts from the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, simply there to answer their questions about a union election. But the truth is their contract says that they're there to defeat the union. And unfortunately, a lot of workers don't have access to that information for a wide array of reasons. And we simply want to make sure that the information that workers are entitled to is in their hands before they go and vote, or even during the organizing process, so that they know the real names of the people that are talking to them and how much they're getting paid and what they're getting paid to do, and what the tactics are that they will be utilizing against them. It's unfortunately, as you know, Jacob, like, labor law in this country is not very well enforced. It's not very well written, unfortunately. So a lot of the power does end up having to be in the grassroots, in the hands of workers, because that is the only way that we hold these folks accountable, because the folks in DC are not coming to the rescue.
You mentioned that there's a huge compliance gap, meaning that unions overwhelmingly proactively comply. It's not like they break the law on accident or on purpose and then they comply. You know, unions just typically, as a matter of course, follow the law with respect to compliance and reporting. What are some of those things that unions have to be transparent about? And can you contrast kind of the level of transparency that's required, even on paper, between the employers and the unions?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me first start by saying that transparency matters. As a union member myself, I care about transparency within my union. The fact of the matter is that my union is transparent. Unions are transparent, and what they have to file are massive reports on how they spend every dime, who gets paid what, the process the money goes out. I mean, the Department of Labor has some guidance up on their website about how much time it takes a union to fill out one of these disclosures, and we're talking hundreds of hours. And that's because the finances of a union are gone through with a fine-tooth comb and submitted to the Department of Labor. And unions overwhelmingly comply with that law, and they comply with it on time. And it is down to, I mean, it's just a slight exaggeration that it's down to the kind of Kleenex that you buy for the office, right? Now, on the other side, employers are supposed to disclose how much they spent on labor relations and union busting every year. If you want to know how many do, it is a vast minority of employers. The same thing with the union busters. Unfortunately, the union busting is even more important. In these disclosure laws, which is the Labor Management Relations and Disclosure Act, all of these are annual disclosures except for one form, and that is a form that a union buster is supposed to submit to the Department of Labor within 30 days of being hired for union busting. First, that is way too long. It's 2026. Anyone can fill out one of these forms in, literally, the Department of Labor's guidance says like half an hour or something like that. There's no way that in the 2026 this shouldn't be done within 48 hours so that workers have that information. But even with that 30-day timeline, the vast majority, again, of these disclosures are late, and it looks intentional that many of them come out after the election so that the information is useless to workers. Hopefully they win their election and that information is useful when they get to the bargaining table. But if they don't win their election, there's almost no recourse and nothing is being done about this. This is vital information that the US Congress said workers are supposed to have access to this information before they vote. And that this simple form can't even be submitted. And it has to be intentional. Because these people call themselves labor relations experts. So if they don't know about their obligations under labor relations law, either they're incompetent or they're intentionally trying to hide their activities because they know that they have a better chance of defeating a union if they stay in the shadows.
Right. And that's where LaborLab comes in. You know, if people can get the names of these consultants, then you can go back and see reports that they filed on previous campaigns and give people like a picture of who these people are, how much they typically make, even if you don't have the current contract they're working on right now. You can give, you also search through like NLRB case files and stuff and find instances where these people have been found to have violated the law in the past. And so LaborLab is a super useful tool. If people are in campaigns or they think that there's a union buster like on their site and they want more information, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to follow up on what you're saying real quick, Jacob, part of the reason we collect all of this information is because we know that the union busters aren't going to play by the rules. So we're going to build the profiles that workers are entitled to. So if you think you have a union buster on your site and even if you don't know how to find the filing, we're happy to look for it, but then also get you the information that you're entitled to. To get in contact with us, just shoot us an email at contact@laborlab.us, and me or someone from our team will get right to making sure you have that information that you are entitled to, and make sure that the union buster and employer are playing by the rules as well. I mean, we're only in the 4th month of this year, and we've filed almost 1,000 complaints against union busters just this year.
Wow. In
And
2026.
Yeah.
Wow.
In 2026. Yeah. This is how overwhelming the disrespect for labor rights is within the union busting industry.
You know, speaking of kind of the state of the law, this is a bit of an old story, but you went to D.C., to the Capitol, and you were a witness on during a House, some sort of House session about labor law reform, and so you were called to be one of the witnesses. And can you tell us a little bit about that experience and what the proposals on the table were, and what some of the proposals are that LaborLab has that you think would be valuable and help tilt the scales a little bit towards transparency and towards workers being able to see kind of what's going on?
Yeah, thanks so much for that opportunity. Yeah, going and testifying in DC was an amazing opportunity to raise the temperature on this compliance problem. The subcommittee Republicans majority were considering some labor reforms, specifically creating more burdens through the LMRDA on unions. And, you can have a debate on some of the merits of some of the proposals, but the issue isn't necessarily the proposals, it is the list of priorities. The fact of the matter is that it was very easy for me to go before Congress and tell them that we had a compliance problem, because all I had to do was refer to the last time they did a report on this, which was in 1984, and literally we're 40 years later and the same problems exist. The same people that sat in the chairs as those members of Congress said, what is the Department of Labor doing? We have made it so clear that workers are entitled to this information. This law doesn't just apply to unions, it applies to employers and union busters as well. Why doesn't the Department of Labor act like it? That was in 1984. Then in 2024, an inspector general report from the Department of Labor found the exact same thing. So nothing is being done. While the majority wants to focus on union compliance, which again is overwhelmingly on time and accurate, they want to it's almost creating a red herring, right? Where you are focusing on this while the real problem, as I said during my testimony, you're focusing on the teeth and ignoring the cancer in the body. And the fact of the matter is that millions of workers are being denied information they're entitled to every single year. When is this committee going to step up and demand the Department of Labor actually start implementing the law the way it's meant to be? A number of members of Congress were in complete agreement, did not realize how disparate the compliance was and how much an industry was being allowed to operate in the darkness. So that was a really good opportunity. We're hopeful that Congress will consider some major reforms to the LMRDA, either through legislation or rulemaking. Some of those key examples, some of them are really easy, like what we were talking about earlier, when a union buster needs to file within 48 hours, not 30 days. Second, we need to start going after the non-compliers. The Department of Labor has a Solicitor General that can issue subpoenas. During the Biden administration, the Department of Labor actually did, for what I believe was the first time, subpoenaed Starbucks to find out how much they were spending on their, commando strike force that they were flying all over the country to union bust every small shop that had an organizing drive. The tools exist in the Department of Labor to increase compliance. It's just the will to act, and it's very easy. Subpoenas will get the job done. Additionally, when a union fills out their disclosures, they cannot submit it if everything isn't entered correctly. There is no such standard for the union busting industry. And that's a really easy fix. You just make it like any other tech tool out there where you can't press submit if you leave fields blank. For example, a lot of these union busters use fake names. And we need to be making their tax identification numbers, their employer identification numbers mandatory, because that's the only way we can actually verify if Tom and Joe are the same people, right? Some of these fixes are incredibly easy. They just need the pressure to get done, and there's just a lack of will, which I think is so indicative of how Washington D.C. operates, right? The interests of workers always take a back seat to the interests of corporate priorities, and the Department of Labor has demonstrated this over and over again when it comes to transparency around union elections. Lastly, the NLRB and Department of Labor need to be cooperating more so that every time there's a union election, the Department of Labor zeroes in on it to make sure that everyone is playing by the rules. Because a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the NLRB is the only agency that exists to protect our labor rights. The Department of Labor should be involved when an NLRB election gets filed to make sure that the workers have the information they need. And another example that we'd love to see is if you hire a union buster, you have to put up a public notice in your workplace, because workers are entitled to that information. I don't know how many workers that, like, when they get off their shift, they go to the Department of Labor's website and start searching through financial disclosures. No, because people have like real lives and families to be with. So you cannot expect that information to get in the hands of workers without being proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just it. And the DOL website and the NLRB web, they're all so old and difficult to kind of maneuver through, even for people that know what they're doing. It's not an enjoyable website to try to to crawl through.
No, I will tell you that later, hopefully in May, but at least sometime this summer, we will be launching our own database that should be a little more intuitive and user friendly to access all of this information, at least to give you a jumping off point for looking more into these guys.
Great. Well, yeah, we'll look forward to being able to share that on our program. And, given how interested the Republican Party and the Trump administration is in being perceived as, the party of workers, a government for working people, you would think that they would be jumping on these things. And you're not even talking about like the sort of union election reforms that the labor movement has been pushing for years, like card check or, enforced neutrality or positive neutrality or anything like that. You're just talking about, okay, everything that's happening now, everybody just has to know about it. You just you just have to know about it. So this seems like a really easy ball for the Republicans to pick up. And so I'm assuming that you're working with, James Comer or somebody like really high up in the Republican House leadership to get a bill on the floor, right?
Oh yeah. There's such an appetite for that for sure. We may be being told a story that's different from the facts here when it comes to where their priorities are on workers. I mean,
Interesting.
you're right. I mean,
You're telling me
I
for the
am
first time.
obviously a major supporter of the PRO Act. We have to get that
Mhm.
done. We are talking about the lowest hanging fruit. We're talking about the
Right.
current law being enforced. Just the current law. Do I think the union busting industry should even exist? No. But
Right.
there are minimum standards that we're asking for. And also, as a Republican, this is a party that is constantly talking about responsible use of tax dollars. Now, is that genuine? We can have a debate about that. But
Mhm.
so many union busters, let's take Amazon, for example, receive millions of dollars in federal contracts, right? Um, Are they using that money for union busting while 70% of American taxpayers support unions? That 70% of Americans, maybe even more than that, are not happy if any of their taxpayer dollars from federal contractors are
Right.
then turning around and busting workers. That is another huge misuse of our taxpayer dollars. And even if they're not specifically using federal dollars for that, why are we subsidizing industries that union bust in the face
Right.
of public opinion and sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon itself just in 2025 spent, I think it was $26 million on union busters.
Just on the consultants. That
Yeah.
doesn't even count the attorneys. That doesn't
Right.
include their labor relations team. That doesn't include HR. That doesn't include
Mhm.
how much they spent for on
On surveillance.
advertising and communication. I mean, that is a sliver of
Right.
the pie, and obviously, like, we pay a lot of attention to that. We are also doing a lot of work to d- expose how much the rest of this costs as well.
Mhm.
And it's the 26 million is just a handful of firms getting paid millions of dollars. I mean, we have
Yeah.
one consultant who made $7 million just union busting for Amazon last year. And
That's
you have people
crazy.
dying in warehouses.
Right. Yeah, well, and and Amazon is a huge employer, and hundreds of thousands, maybe a million people. I don't know, lots of employees in the country. But even small employers. I mean, we just talked earlier in the program to the business manager for the operating engineers in North Alabama. They've got a unit in Decatur where they're trying to get a contract. They won a union election about a year ago. A 12-person unit. There are 12 people in this bargaining unit, and they are spending $600 an hour on an attorney, and they've got multiple union busting consultants who, by the way, have not, filed the required forms, and so we don't know how much they're getting paid. But the lawyer that they're paying to negotiate with the union, $600 an hour is his rate, and then they've got multiple union busters for 12 people. I mean, Amazon, at least you can say that potentially for them, maybe it makes business sense to do it because there are so many people. And so if unions got a foothold, like maybe, in the crudest, most like evil sort of calculations, we can exploit people a little bit more. But for a 12-person bargaining unit, you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, potentially tens of thousands. You just pay the workers, just give them a good contract, and you're done. It's crazy.
We actually just did a big report on this with a number of nursing homes in Minnesota. And a member of our team was at the state legislature testifying on this. We're talking about instances where they were spending, we're talking like 40, tens of thousands of dollars per worker per vote, right? And what you're talking about is not uncommon. We see small employers doing this all the time where they get a union election and then they immediately hire one of these folks where literally it would have been cheaper for them to give everyone a 25% raise and they would have kept their workforce, right? Instead, they're going to rip it apart and probably spend more money and reputational harm as well.
Mhm.
Let's be honest, People do not like finding out that their local business or AT&T are union busting. It doesn't matter either way. It's really, really bad. You see it on like social media. There's like this one place in a coffee shop in Portland, Owl Cafe, who hired union busters. And like social media is like, what are you guys doing? You're a local
Yeah.
coffee shop. You have like 6 baristas. Why are you spending money on this? Why? I guess that's where my like $10 latte goes. Is to paying for these union busters.
It's so crazy. I really can't understand the mindset that you have to be in, and it really, in my opinion, goes to show how much American employer antipathy towards unions is really about power and control over the strict kind of financial calculations that come along with your workers being represented by a union. No doubt that's part of it. They don't want to make a little bit less profits and their workers make a little bit more money, but so much of it really is about, I want to be able to do whatever I want to the people who work for me. And it doesn't matter if you've worked for this, it doesn't matter if you've worked for this company for decades. I'm the owner and I'm special and I get to do kind of whatever I want with your life and you don't get a say. And that's so much of it is really motivated by that.
Yeah. First, just one quick thing, because I don't know if there's an Owl Cafe in Portland, and I do not want to besmirch their reputation. It's Holy Donut. That's the name of the place in Portland, Maine. So, but absolutely, Jacob, there is a culture in this country that is really unique here. The rest of the industrialized world, even the union busters I've met from other countries, from the UK, Germany, Canada, even, they don't understand why there's just such a knee-jerk reaction against unions. And this culture has been fermented throughout the entire history of our country, and it has permeated down to even the smallest business owner, that if they allowed didn't fight their workers, the fact of the matter is, workers that are organized are more productive, better retention, better outcomes for services that you provide. So it's not about your bottom line. It's not about your business. It is about power, and it's about control, and it's about ego.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the reason that I wanted to get you on the program today is that y'all have a conference coming up that looks really exciting. Can you tell people about it? When is it going to be? How can they sign up? And what are the things that y'all are going to be talking about?
Yeah, thanks so much. So LaborLab actually turns 5 years old on May 1st. So in that, we wanted to have this summit be online instead of in person, so that we could actually open it up to more people. Really what we want is to get this information in the hands of organizing workers and researchers and strategists on the ground, that may not necessarily have the travel budget or something like that. So our summit is May 6th and May 7th. They're 2 half days to hopefully make it more accessible to working people, instead of asking for an entire day off. You can register for it if you go to laborlab.us/summit, but also if you just go to laborlab.us, you'll see a big 2026 summit at the top. It's going to be, first off, I'm really excited about our keynote. Jennifer Abruzzo, former general counsel to the NLRB, probably one of the most important powerhouses in this country when it comes to standing up for workers' rights and combating the union busting industry. But we've got 2 days of really exciting workshops and panels from organizers on the ground, the people behind salting Starbucks, to compliance and tracking the union busting industry, to changes in recent policy, tactics, how to use media when you're facing a union buster. It's a global and very well-rounded summit that we're really, really excited about. And I think anyone that attends, and registration's going great, so please come and join us. You'll be able to connect with a lot of people as well. But our sentiment behind it is like we need to organize against the union busting industry. And this is really our first attempt to start that larger conversation within the movement of how do we collectively go against this industry. And it's free to attend. Again, just go to laborlab.us. You can register there. Please send it to your coworkers, colleagues, family, union members. If you're business managers, really appreciate you sending that out to your membership, because the more people we have there, the better. It's cliche, but it's true. Knowledge is power. And these 2 days are you're going to walk away with a lot of knowledge, a lot of tools, and a new network to combat union busting against your union or in your community. So we're really excited about it.
I'm really excited for Abruzzo. Her speech, she was great. Best general counsel that we've had at the NLRB probably since, it was founded. I don't know. I'm not a scholar on NLRB general counsels, but she was great. So really excited to be able to hear her. And Bob Funk is the executive director and founder of LaborLab. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk to people about with this conference, or anything else that y'all are doing before we let you go?
I'll just reiterate something from earlier in our conversation. If you are facing union busting, we want to help. We want to make sure that you get the information you need. Again, the best email is contact@laborlab.us. Want me or a member of our team will start working with you to make sure that you have everything you're legally entitled to. And then just really always appreciate being on the show. You guys are doing such amazing work.
All right, Bob, thanks for coming on. Appreciate what y'all do.
Room and can manage your callers from the
All
call-in
right, there
studio
you go.
web
We
interface.
are opening the phone lines right now. You can call in at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. Would love to talk to you about anything that we've talked to during the program or anything else. Give us a call, and if you catch this message while we are not live, you can also leave us a voicemail at 844-899-TVLR. We do have one more clip that I wanted to play, that I wanted to react to. Faz Shakur is an advisor, senior advisor to Bernie Sanders, and he goes on Fox News sometimes, and he had a really great appearance on it about a week or two ago that I wanted to share some with you, because he really gets at dismantling a pretty prominent right-wing argument that we hear a lot in a way that I think is really great. So let's go ahead and play clip 3.
We also need an agenda. We got to go before the American public and say, what are Democrats going to campaign off? You put us in the office.
So here what he's talking about is...
What can you do? What is you want to end the war? End the funding for this war immediately. I think in addition, we need to expand...
What he's talking about here is... they were having a conversation about what does the Democrats' message need to be, right? And so he's trying to list off what, beyond just what do Democrats, if they want to win, what do Democrats need to oppose, but what do they need to support? We've seen that as something that people have been really disappointed in both parties for their lack of follow-through, in anything that has actually benefited working people in this country. And so Faz has a lot of stuff here that he's going to say that he thinks, and that I agree, Democrats should really take up.
Hold the House, hold the Senate. What can you do? What is you want to end the war? End the funding for this war immediately. I think in addition, we need to expand health care in America, give every American the option to buy into Medicare. That'd be a good start. And the president himself has suggested a couple areas that I think Democrats could work with him on. Capping credit card interest rates, banning private equity from buying residential houses. That's an agenda. And I want to hear more Democrats talk about a proactive vision of what we want to do for America's working class.
Okay, it seems like Rahm Emanuel's got some pretty good ideas, Carl, coming from the center-left aisle for the Democratic Party. Here's what he writes in part in the Journal. He says, beginning next year, we'll have the power in Congress, assuming they take the House and Senate, I guess, to illustrate to the American people that the most important distinction in Washington is between our positive agenda and their crony capitalism. How we handle 2027 and what we choose to highlight will be as important as who we nominate for president in 2028. Does that sound like an agenda that Faz is crying for at the moment, Carl?
Well, both the left and the
I also
center
want to point out the irony of Karl Rove giving Democrats advice about, what what they need to do to win elections. Karl Rove, famously great guy.
Democratic Party are in favor of a positive agenda, but when it gets down to the details, there's going to be a very big difference. The agenda that Faz just outlined is going to be really enthusiastically supported in the very liberal parts of the country. It's not going to be supported in the swing areas and in the battleground states, in my opinion.
This was a really fascinating argument that he has there, because the agenda, that the literally the most radical thing that Faz proposed there was allowing people to buy into Medicare. That's not Medicare for all. That's not, that would be people paying premiums for Medicare and having Medicare instead of private health insurance, but giving that to people as a public option. That is literally the most radical, quote unquote, proposal that Faz put out there, and that is not radical at all. That's not radical at all. And so I think that Rove came to the conversation prepared to try to paint Faz as like a, kind of foaming at the mouth, radical communist sort of guy, and just was not listening to what he said. But I mean, literally half of what Faz was saying was that there are things that the Trump administration has proposed that the Trump administration is not actually interested in following through on, that Democrats should pick up and actually do for people, right? I mean, that was literally half of the things that he was talking about. And so the idea that, Faz is out here spouting radical stuff is just not actually what is happening in this conversation.
Represents a more traditional Democratic approach. That's what the Democrats need in order to win, because this election and the election that follows it will be decided by a group of people who are far closer to the middle than they are to the extremes of either party.
Okay, Faz, he mentioned positive agenda. Can you define that? Because I guess in your first answer we could not.
Yeah, of course I did. I said President Trump himself had suggested capping credit card interest rates. What's so radical about that? We should do that. How about banning, private equity from owning more residential housing in America? That sounds good. I said buy into Medicare. Every American should have the option to buy into it. Right now, most people are losing health care. Let's give them the chance to expand their health care access. Those, to me, are not radical ideas, Bill.
Okay, so it seems as if when the Democratic Party needs to go somewhere, Carl, what they do is they go for taxes. And it used to be go after the millionaires. Now it's the billionaire and the millionaire class. They're doing this in Washington State. Axios writes this: the left pushes a wealth tax as a litmus test for 2028 Dems. Maybe that law in Washington State stands. Maybe it doesn't. I think it can be challenged under state law. But they're talking about it in New York and a lot of other places. And, Carl, you just wonder if that's the playbook, does that work now?
Yeah, well, I don't think it does, because it basically establishes the principle that the government can come and tax you on your assets. So if you own a home, you have a car, you own a farm.
Okay, this is the funniest thing. Because if you own a home, you own a car, then the government might be able to tax you on it. Buddy, it already does. We do. What are you talking about? Every year, every month, when I pay my mortgage, I am paying property taxes. That is so. And he has to know that, right? It's so funny how far removed you have to be to kind of paint these wealth taxes as something that's just the most radical thing ever, because working people, we do have to pay taxes on our wealth. The largest single source of wealth for normal working people is our homes, and we are taxed on that literally every single month. And so what people are saying is that the folks who have most of their wealth in stocks and things like that, ownership of companies, they should be taxed kind of like the rest of us. Actually, it's not actually that radical.
Government can come in and tax each year the value of that asset, as opposed to taxing your income, your profits, if you so to speak. But look, we've just heard an agenda, and the agenda is pretty left wing. Let's go allow everybody to buy into Medicare, a system which is going broke in 5 years. Let's speed up the date at which Medicare, the Social Security, is also similarly in a bad position. Let's take these great.
Okay, here we got another one here. I mean, Social Security in particular, the only reason that Social Security is financially distressed is because there is a cap on the income that people are taxed on for Social Security. You do not get taxed on any income above, it's like $170,000. So the union electrician who worked 6-7 days a week and made $170,000 that year paid exactly as much into Social Security as somebody who made $500 million or $1 billion or $2 billion in income that year. That is totally irrational. And if you eliminate the income cap, and you increase benefits. You can eliminate the income cap, and you get so much money by eliminating the income cap that you are able to increase the benefits that Social Security recipients receive by, I think it's like $2,000 a month. And Social Security is still solvent for 75 years. I mean, basically forever, right? It's just totally... the Social Security and Medicare, the idea that these programs are going bankrupt and can't be saved. Complete lie, complete fiction, not true.
Safety nets for Americans and make them even more problematic. Let's collapse them even quicker. Let's have a cap on interest rates on credit cards. Sounds like a good idea. What's going to happen is people who find it difficult to get a credit card to begin with are now not going to be able to get a credit card, and they're going to have to go to payday loans and other very onerous ways to get access to capital. So I'm all in favor of Foz's agenda. Let's have the Democrats adopt it full-throated and then take it to the American people and see how the American people react, because they ain't going to react very well.
Okay, Faz, are they?
Well, right now, the problem is you got a billionaire class that wants to extort America. They say, hey, if you want to tax us, you want to use the democratic process to institute fairer taxes on us, then we will punish you. We will move to places like Florida and Texas. I'm a Floridian, so if you look at Florida right now, Bill, there are a number of billionaires that moved there, Zuckerberg, Bezos, and others. And you would say, right, because of the billionaire influx into Florida, the working class must be doing great. Wrong. Right now, they're proposing budgets to cut education, cut health care, cut public lands. This is a state I know and love. And why is it? Why is it that the billionaires flee to a place like Florida and you can't improve the standard of living of Floridians? Why? Because they are instituting a sense of a rule of the oligarchy. If you want to take us on, you will not allow you to tax us, and you cannot improve the lives of working class Americans. It is a choice for us. Are we going to stand up to this power or not?
That is such an important point. People always fearmonger about, oh, maybe a billionaire is going to leave New York City and go to Florida. Well, the obvious next question to that is, do Floridians, working people in Florida, actually benefit from that? And the answer is very clearly no. I mean, we have a very similar, we have a similar dynamic here in the state of Alabama, where we have very low taxes. Actually, we have the lowest per capita tax revenue of any country, of any state in the country except one. Right? And the standard of living for working Alabamians is not actually that great. It's one of the worst places in the country, actually, to be a working person because of the level of control that employers and bosses and millionaires have over not just our jobs, but also our political system. And so, I thought that was such an important way to kind of problematize the narrative that is always pushed about, oh, well, a billionaire, if you tax them, the billionaires might leave. Well, what happens when they do leave? Do the states who get the billionaires actually end up benefiting? The answer seems to be no, right? The answer seems to be no. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857 if you'd like to call in. You can leave us a voicemail. And that's actually going to be it for us today. We're going to wrap up a little bit early. Adam's not in, and I've got some errands that I need to run. So appreciate everybody tuning in. If you want to leave us a voicemail, again, the phone number is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a note at tvlr.fm/contact. Really appreciate everybody's time and look forward to talking to you again next week.